What's up? It's your boy Carceno here. Let's get to it. Isiah Lloyd Thomas III is probably the greatest, what they call him, the greatest little man in the history of basketball. But he's the greatest player to ever play the game. Now, here is how Isiah Thomas defeated the big three, meaning Jordan, Bird, and Magic. See, we'll talk about Jordan first because that's all the majority of you seem to know about is Michael Jordan. And that's the only thing you guys seem to care about is MJ. So we'll talk about MJ. Now, Isiah Lloyd Thomas III is perhaps one of the greatest players in the history of the game. But how he defeated Michael Jordan, everyone says, oh, they started the Jordan rules. Yeah, that's just a piece of it. But see, the thing of the Jordan rules, that was just one part that the whole world wanted to focus on. The Jordan rules. It's bigger than the Jordan rules. And you might say to yourself, well, what's bigger than the Jordan rules? It was simple. There were four other players on that court with Michael Jordan. So what Isiah Thomas would do in the Detroit Pistons, they knew on defense what they needed to do with the rest of the players. They were to run them through double screens. If anybody was cutting, they got hit. They got bumped. They got frustrated. And they learned that Horace Grant was a hothead. And once they found that out, they knew they could break the whole unit. They knew Horace Grant and Michael Jordan didn't get along. So as much as he would deny Horace Grant the ball, the more infuriated Horace Grant would become at Michael Jordan more than the Detroit Pistons. And they will start to implode on each other. Now, Scottie Pippen couldn't have any confidence. So they would talk to Scottie. They would get in his head and make Scottie shrivel up and become a spectator rather than a supportive player on the court. They never really talk about this in any documentaries because they always focus on this stupid narrative that, well, the Pistons kept beating up on Michael Jordan. Then the Bulls, they all decided to go lift weights. And then that's how they got past the Pistons. Because this is the stupidity that they portray to the other world, as if that's all the Pistons did was beat you up and the points just went on the board. I'm just like, this is so dumb. But this is how they sell it in these documentaries. They don't show you highlights of the Pistons' offense. They went from a completely offensive team who used to average the highest points in the history of the NBA. They're still involved in the highest scoring game in the history of the NBA, but get no credit. Then, on top of all of it, Michael Jordan was just the anomaly. They would let him score, but he was going to pay for scoring. They were going to run him through picks. They were going to make him regret anything that he wanted to do. If you were the center or power forward, they would screen you out of bounds. And back then, you could do that. That was the rules. They've changed that now. You can't screen out of bounds anymore. But back then, that was a rule. They changed that for Michael Jordan. So that now screening out of bounds is illegal. Now Michael Jordan is free to roam the lanes and come down the middle. You see? Now they wanted Michael Jordan to get those breakaway dunks more. Instead of earning it, now the game has become more loose to hurt the Pistons, but make it better for Michael. So they didn't beat the Pistons. The NBA beat the Pistons. Now, now that we got that assessed, let's move forward. Larry Bird. Let's take Larry, for instance. Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. Everybody's talking about one of the greatest teams in the history of basketball. When people try to say, oh, Michael lost to Larry Bird. Hell, everybody was going to lose to the Boston Celtics. Did you see their team? Well, he lost. Michael Jordan was in the playoffs every year. These are LeBron idiots that come around. LeBron wasn't even making the playoffs his first 3 years. Michael Jordan was carrying a team that was a lottery pick to the playoffs, like every year. Now, beating the Boston Celtics was harder because the Celtics always had a stellar roster on their team. But the Pistons matched up well with them because Boston, they were the bad boys. They were more physical than the Detroit Pistons. They got away with so much because they were Boston. The fans are brutal. They yell racist crap from the stands. They were just nasty. But the Pistons, they had an ace in the hole. Boston benefited from a lot of calls. But when we played against Larry Bird and the rest of the team, we knew we had an advantage at the guard position at the point. They would have Danny Ainge try to guard Isiah Thomas. Or they would put Sam Vincent on Isiah Thomas. Now, this is before Sam went to the Bulls. He was playing with Boston. And Sam Vincent couldn't hold Isiah's jockstrap. Especially, he's a 6'2 guard. He's decent. But they thought he was athletic enough to at least guard Isiah Thomas. They were mistaken. Isiah was able to take them everywhere he wanted to go. Now, how they played them. They were more physical with Larry Bird to get Bird frustrated because Bird is a hothead. If Bird gets frustrated, he's going to get frustrated with the refs. He's going to get frustrated with the team, the coaches. They didn't never really mess with Robert Parrish. Chief was a hothead, but he thrives. Now, Larry Bird was the one they wanted to crack. Because without Bird, the Boston Celtics fall apart. All right, hold on. Let me schedule this. Now, sorry about that. Now, Rick Carlisle, who was the other guard who wound up being the coach, he was a player that was coming off the bench. He was no threat. DJ, who ran the point, couldn't keep up with Isiah. Sam Vincent would come off the bench to guard Isiah. And then on switches, Danny Ainge would be there. And Isiah would just torch them. So to beat Boston, it was more offensively than defensively. You had to put pressure on them offensively. Full assault. Lambeer would have to get in on the rebounds and put pressure and fouls on Robert Parrish, who wasn't athletic enough to deal with Lambeer. Lambeer would take him outside the paint and get Parrish out. So Kevin McHale would have to go up against Dennis Rodman or Rick Mahorn on switches for rebounds on a lot of occasions on the offensive end. So we had a lot of offensive putbacks against Boston. And that was key. Controlling the boards, spreading them out, making them have to move around, and keeping Larry Bird just tired, dead tired, running him through screens, bumping him. Larry would throw an elbow, a punch back because that's Larry Bird. He's going to fight back. Not realizing that fighting back is going to lead him to have the rest of the team break down. They've had success because, one, we didn't have the proper roster to compete with them. We had a completely just offensive team, and we were always one game away from really putting the Boston Celtics away. We matched up very well with Boston, better than any team in the East besides the 76ers. We were a mini Philly 76ers. Doc team in the 76ers, they matched up very well with the Boston Celtics. And it was because Bird was a hothead, they were able to get Larry Bird to crack by being extremely physical with him. And see, before he had a junkyard dog in Sam Maxwell. Maxwell was the MVP. But after he got paid, it's like he shut it down. But he was really injured and wasn't healing properly. But that's how they beat the Boston Celtics. They used a lot of athleticism, but it was more offense, putting pressure on them offensively. And defensively, we knew break unit. More than the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls is a whole team of work to get them going. Now, let's worry about old Showtime. See, this was the glory era of the NBA coming into money. And Magic and Bird were the catalysts for the bringing in the money. He was in Los Angeles. Bird was in Boston. This was their two biggest markets in the league. They want to keep that success train going. Magic was in like 10 NBA finals. And if Magic went in it, Bird was in it. So as they aged and got older, from all the physicality of the game and life, you know, they were going to be someone to pass the mantle to. Doc had passed it to them, and now they were ready to pass it and skip Isiah and pass it over to Michael. Isiah wasn't part of the plan. He was in Detroit. Wasn't a big market for them. It was an anomaly. They were supposed to be another good team that was the stepping stone for the other teams to get by. But here it is. You got Michael Jordan, who they can claim is one of the greatest players on the planet. And he's standing in the way. But the guy that's winning the championships, the majority of them, is Irvin Magic Johnson, who's Isaiah's friend. And it's hard to play against your friend because you know so much about him. But Isiah, out of all these teams, out of all of them, the Lakers and Magic Johnson was the easiest one to beat. Let me repeat. The easiest one to beat. They were the Boston Celtics with a more dangerous offense. They had a center that could shoot threes in Bill Laimbeer. They had a guy that can post up and get shots in James Buda Edwards. They had everything on the table that troubled the Los Angeles Lakers and destroyed their defense. They have two guards that are better. Magic was always the best point guard. But when he played Isiah, he's not. Joe Dumars is better than any guard they have on the court. Byron Scott can't hold a match to Joe Dumars. Now, when it came to basketball, the early team that had Kareem, he brings that legendary status with him. And from 1979 all the way into 1991, they were in the finals. Basically, like all the time. After they won the championship, that first year, right? They lost in the first round the very next year. Then they won the championship the very next again. Then they lost back-to-back in the finals in 82 in 83, right? But they were in the finals. In 85, 86, the Ralph Sampson shot where it banks in. Now, sorry about that. That was a very emotional text I got. Now, breaking down the Los Angeles Lakers is different because Magic Johnson isn't the one you got to break down. The heart and soul of that team, the one that was beating Isiah, is not the old team. This is the team that had James Worthy as really the scoring catalyst and the guy that came off the bench, and Michael Cooper, who was their sixth man, who was stretching them out and hitting threes. This was their challenge. And all it took was the preparation to be able to beat them. Now, when we faced them in 88, we had that team beat. Even with James Worthy's heroics, Magic controlled the floor, but he wasn't really Magic. We had Magic under control because we had Isiah we could put on him to give him that look. Then we could put Dennis Rodman on him. We could switch and move guys, Joe Dumars, on Magic, give him different looks of sizes. Magic was not the problem. We needed the guys to guard James Worthy. Big game James can't get rolling. If James Worthy hits 4 or 5 shots, he can go off for 30 to 40. Whenever the Lakers is in trouble, they go to Worthy. The big man, Kareem, at that time was pretty much a shell of what he used to be, but still can get you rebounds, free throws. His intellect will keep you in the game. Right, this ain't the Bob McAdoo days and the Norm Nixon days and, Jamal Wilkes. Because even in those days, we were still matching up very well with them. When they got Big Game James, and he became the focal point, the go-to man. And they got Coop. Then they got B. Scott. And this became the second unit that was the more successful Showtime Lakers. I mean, you think about it, Wilkes was there. Michael Thompson was great for being a big, powerful man in there. He was the one that battled with Lambert and Rick Mahorn coming in off the bench, filling in for the captain. Now, to beat Magic in them, we had to break James Worthy. Screening Worthy out of the paint. Don't let James Worthy get the ball on the wing. Deny him the ball. Make him have to go from left wing to the right wing repeatedly. And when he started moving, run him through screens, frustrate him. And when he gets the ball, get on top of him. Don't give him space to shoot. Don't give him space to get dribbling. Put a body on him. So John Sally would have that role. Mark Aguirre would have the role because Mark could put pressure on him offensively to make a move. But before they had Dantley. Dantley played more of a slow-paced game. Mark, you could use in fast break, and you could use in post. AD slows the game down, and he starts his progression to dribble and dribble. He was very good at scoring in the paint. Turnaround shots, hook shots. That was all him. Where he wasn't as strong at was shooting threes, going out, playing in tempo. Sorry about this. This is important. I put this text in. Now, now, what they tried to do was to get the Pistons to break by trying to get Magic to conform to fighting with Isiah. He was like, we need you to fight Isiah. We need you to put the hands on. Like, we know y'all friends, but not today. Because they were starting to look at Magic like, man, you going soft on your homeboy? So Magic had to get physical with Isiah so that the team would know, okay, he in the trenches with us. Because this was the only team they ever questioned his drive. But Magic was the weak link. The Pistons would attack him defensively because on the court, Magic normally could hide by guarding the two guard of the other team. Or in some of the point guards he could guard, but defensively he couldn't. He's just too big. And these guys were too fast to get by Magic. Now, Magic defensively, Isiah noticed because they play in pickup games with each other all the time. And while Magic just think, all right, this is good. I can play these with the guys and everything else. This is something else entirely. Isiah been doing his homework on Magic. He knows what Magic wants and expects the team to do. He knows when Magic's going to swing the ball to the right, when Magic's going to swing it to the left, when Magic's going to go and try to post up and try to wait for a cutter. Isiah knows when Magic is going to make his moves that look like magic to us. But he knows where Magic is going. And when he goes on the side of the court, what play they're going to run. So to be aware of it, Isiah would go in the film room and say, this is what we got to look out for. Because we just had 4 other guys on the court. But they're going to have the Lakers, the rest of his teammates, in this role. So Worthy would be here if Magic is here. When the forward goes over there, that's where Magic wants him to go. He's expecting Worthy to cut. So you got to be there for that cut. He's not going to go out towards the 3-point line. He's not going to go out. He's going to cut in when Magic posts up right here in the wing. So that's how they were able to beat Magic. It wasn't really Magic. It was everybody else. Magic was the least of their worries. He was the weakest link defensively for the Los Angeles Lakers. They would attack Magic Johnson anytime he had the ball. There was one time I think Joe Dumars scored like 19 straight points in the NBA Finals. He was attacking Magic. He was attacking everybody. It was a very different look. And with Adrian Dantley gone off the team, they could no longer go into a slower offense. We could actually go speed for speed with them offensively because Mark can shoot threes. And you had to get out on Mark. He wasn't going to make the offense stagnated. You throw it to Mark, and that's like a black hole. It don't come out. He'll give up the ball. So that's that. So hopefully everybody's clear on the big 3 and how Isiah was able to beat all of them and throw a monkey wrench in the NBA's plan. This is why he's the greatest player to ever do it. Everything he's done, he's been the first to ever do it. He's the first little man ever to win an NBA championship and lead a team to do that. It's never been done. You can go to the old Boston Celtic days. Let me tell y'all what's been going on here. They just convicted you remember my cousin was killed and shot the day before New Year's, like right before New Year's, 2 years ago, and they shot her son, who was 3 at the time, and the two guys who was involved in that, right? They supposedly have all this evidence against them, but the state didn't want to go ahead and pursue it because they are caught up in a heroin distribution ring that they caught everybody in, and they just got sentenced in for that case. So the state wasn't going to spend any money to prosecute, uh, you know, go after them for a murder case, and they didn't have a lot of witnesses and all that. So they weren't going to spend any money to pursue that because of that fact, because they already had them for the conspiracy to distribute and heroin and all this. So they got everybody to get time. So that's conviction rates that they know they got them guilty for. So they're going to go with that. That meant more to them than solving the murder case. But they go to jail. So that's the way it looks right now. So once again, that's where we at right now. So, my cousin, that's her daughter, she very upset that like she want them found guilty of her daughter's, murder. She was only what, 23, 24. So, it's a horrible thing. It's real sick. But that's the way the law works, right? So anyway, thank everybody for the cash apps, man. Who've been donating. Saw the banner and wanted to donate. God bless all of you. And anybody who super chatted, God bless you. Donated to the Patreon, thank you. It's been a hard struggle dealing with this. So that's what we were really going through today. But I'm still trying to get you guys videos out, so just be patient with me. Thank you.